Hello, are you looking out for a video on introduction to project management? Well, in this video, I have broken down it into five parts. Like I'll talk about how do we initiate projects, how do we plan projects, how do we execute projects, how do we monitor control projects, and how do we close projects. Okay, we're going to cover like five topics in this video. If you are looking to understand the project management framework from PMI, this is the video. I've broken down the entire pinball framework. I've captured everything in 1 hour for you to understand the PMI framework on project management, the structure, everything, right? If you're preparing for interviews on project management, and this is the video that's going to give you a synopsis of what exactly project management is. If you're new to project management, want to learn what exactly is project management to make a career decision, then this is the video you should be looking into it. Fine. That's about the video which we have in front of us. This is me, Arham Faraaz. Thank you for coming to my YouTube channel to watch my videos. I have been in the industry for the last 18 years. For the last 8 years, I have been in project manager's role. I started as an associate project manager. I became a program manager, senior project manager, then technical project manager. Now I'm delivery manager. I've worked in the industry across product companies, service companies, agencies, consulting organizations, right? And in a very large organization like Oracle, Dell, Adobe, right? Startups, organizations. So I bring in all my experience on project management to share it here on this channel. In this video, I'm recording about introduction to project management. Let's get started off so you benefit about this project management. We'll start with how to initiate a project. The first process group that is there to start the project. Okay, we'll try to understand in detail about initiating process group. Let's get started off. Okay, so initiating process group. So what are we initiating? We are initiating a project over here, right? So there is a reason to initiate a project. Maybe you're trying to solve a problem, maybe you're trying to solve a problem on the environment, or you want to solve a technical problem, or you want to solve a business problem, or you want to solve some compliance regulations, right? So all of these comes from a business need, or there is some need, right? So you put a business case around it. So you put a business case around this need, and then you try to understand what exactly you're trying to solve over here. So you become with agreements. So in case you're having some vendors do this, you're getting some different partners going to help you do this. You put some agreements in the initiating process group. So agreements all come in initiating process group, right? So agreements are like legal documents. Project charter is created over. That's an internal document to execute the entire project. Okay, you're going to check the industry standards. What are the industry standards to kind of get this kind of projects? Are we meeting those benchmarks? What is the best thing to deliver, right? Then you look into market trends. So the business case gives you an input on all of these things. You go understand what is in the market, and then you kind of come with the conclusion. Okay, fine, this is what is the problem, I think, so we have to go and solve that, right? So that's one thing. Then you also check the feasibility. Is the project feasible? What is the you do some mathematical calculations also. Are there some benefits? You will see the net present value or return on investments, right? So, or what is the payback period of this project? So you look into all of these things in the initiating process period, right? Is this project feasible? You come up with a statement of work. You determine at a high level what are the risk, constraints, assumptions, requirements needed for this project. So initiating process group is going to give you a stage. It's going to set a stage for you to deliver the entire project. If you're starting off as a project manager, you need to know all of these things when you start the project. Why is the project being done? What are the initial risk, assumptions, and then what is the requirements, success criteria, exit criteria, right? All of these are basic things. So that's very important. Now, very important. So in the initiating phase, what are we going to do? We're going to determine what are the measurable objectives. What is the output of this project? What are we going to track from this project? What is the benefit of doing this project, right? So we're going to track all of this, right? What is the measurable output? When is the customer going to be happy when I deliver this project? So we decide on the what's the measurable output of this project, objective, right? Then we also provides a guiding vision. Is the project aligned with our strategy? You have a project charter that aligns with the project strategy. So is the project aligning with the org strategy is also very important part of this initiating process, right? Then we identify important stakeholders. Who are the key people whom I will work within my organization and with the customer? Who's the sponsor? Who's the project manager? Who are the subject matter experts, right? You're going to identify all of these people in the initiating phase of the project, right? Then after that, project manager is officially assigned during the initiation phase also, and is also given authority to execute the project. He has some reserves with him which he uses when the project is going in a, not in a very progressive way, right? He can use the reserves, right? So all of this is happening over there in the initiating phase. And identify the initial milestone. What are the milestones on a project, right? Probably do you want to give milestones based on the deliverables, like for example end of discovery is a milestone, then end of sprint two sprints is a milestone, you have a release after that, or end of UAT is a milestone, right? Or after end of release one is a milestone, or end of MVP is a milestone. You talk about all of these things in the initiating phase, and then you call this out. Okay, then after that, align the project with the organizational strategy. As I told you, use a project charter, aligning with the strategy, and get it done. Right. Companies change control systems also kind of taken care. Like how are you going to approve changes? When will the change control system come into the picture? We're going to talk about all of these things. When will this that will call for extra new change requests, or when is it that we can use the reserves and get things done? We talk about this also in the initiating phase of the project. Then company processes, what are the organizational process policies, how are you going to get things done, how do you approve, get resources approved, is there a PMO or is it not a PMO, or like do we have a project management information systems, is there no software to kind of get the agreements approved, or you've got time tracking. So all of these things are also called out in the initiating phase of the project. Then past relations with sponsor and the team, right? For example, most of the time in sponsorship organizations, the service organizations get benefited because they go and work with sponsors, the new organization get more business from there, right? So though that's very important. In initiation phase, you need to check with the relationship of the sponsor, the project manager, your organization, the customer's organization, right? So this relationship building is very, very important. Then, list of key stakeholders. Also, as I told you, call it all the important people in the project, the sponsor, project managers, subject matter experts who will be working on you, who will help you, the solution guys or the product owner is going to come and give you an overall view or give you a high level input on what is needed, right? Then after that, you talk about the templates. What are the templates you have? Like for example, I was working out with one of the product companies, and we had to prepare a project to kind of stitch many documents together on one of on the intranet for a customer. We had to make a SOW, right? And that was the first time I'm going to make an SOW. So I had to go and look into the old template, see the old template, and see how the SOW was built, put the milestone, put the cost, all of the assumptions, what the company can do, what the company cannot do, right? So all these things are very, very important. Okay, then after that, you have got company culture and team. So how changes are getting approved, the team that's going to come at a high level, you not have all the names now, but you'll get these names a little later, but you'll at least get to know, okay, fine, I need like 6 people, 12 people, or 8 people for this project. Okay, and very important, the initiation phase, you divide large projects into smaller projects, right? Smaller phases. Okay, phase one, phase two, phase three. Like for example, when I was working with one of the organizations as a product company, our mobile software was be going to be used by a financial organization, and it was broken down into 3 or 4 phases. Like for example, one was the rural phase, one was the urban phase, and then also in rural we had the commercial, we had the not commercial phase, then after again for urban commercial, not our commercial, right? Then we have mobile phase, and then we have web phase, right? So multiple phases are coming up, breaking down large project into a smaller project. Okay, that was also being done. So in the initiation phase, we finalize the project charter. We get the charter approved by the sponsor. Remember that project charter is always approved by the sponsor. It can be created by the sponsor alone, or he can also collaborate with people and bring the charter. Right? High level requirements are also gathered in the initiation phase. We define the project exit criteria. When is something going to be exit? Is it a POC, or is it like we want some working software to be out there in the market, or what is the exit criteria, right? Then work with customer on the acceptance criteria. What is the acceptance criteria? How often will come and check? We're going to call all of these things. Then high level scope, duration, cost, constraints are called out. When do they want the project to be delivered? What is the amount, and what is the scope? Like for example, scope bonus are very important to be called out in initial phase. Like in one of the projects when we were working, we were told that initially we just have to work on the back end and there's no UI to be done. Right? But then when we started off in the project in the kickoff, customer don't know we need UI also. Now, this was a strategic customer. We couldn't build them more. We had to use an older budget which we had to kind of get this project done. And we did the piece, and the customer was very happy. And then after that, we got more business from this customer. Okay, so very important. You have to color things on the scope, durations, constraint, and time. Okay, those are triple constraints. ROM estimates, rough order magnitude estimates, are coming in the initiation phase of the project. Rough order manual estimates will give you a buffer of say plus 75% to minus 25%. Let's say you're doing a project for say 100 days, you can give an estimate of 175 days to minus 75 days. This is the range of providing, because at this time we don't have a lot of clarity, we just know what needs to be done. Okay, well, we need more details. So at this time a project manager can only give a range of estimates. Okay, a range that says, okay, in this range I can get this project done. Then finally, we do a lot of conflict resolution, because many people are coming, people not agree on the scope, time, schedule, cost, the ways of working. But a lot of conflicts will happen. So the conflict resolution also needs to be done in the initiation phase of the project. This is the phase of project. The PM needs to be very, very active with the stakeholders. A lot of stakeholder involvement will be over here. Lot of risk will be over here. So the uncertainty of the project is way too high in the initiating phase. We are not clear about many things. So the project manager needs to involve a lot, ask as many questions as possible, document them, put the update the assumption log, update the risk logs, right? And then after that, put the list of criteria for the exit of the project, right? So these things are very, very important. The cost at this stage on the project is low because we are not having many resources. Just the PM and maybe a couple of experts are there for the initial few days, right? So this stage starts after the project is signed. Once the project is signed, the project initiation starts. Okay, in few organizations, even before the project is signed, they start off because they think of strategic customers. But for PMI, for PMP examination, remember that the initiation comes after the project is signed. Okay, the charter is created and the stakeholders are identified. Okay, that's very important. Then very important concept for PMP examination in the initiating process: what is high, what is low. Okay, so the risk is very high in the initiation phase of the project. Okay, so this is the process group. This is the first part of the project. Okay, and that's very, very high. Then after that, the stakeholder involvement also very, very high in the initiating process group. Then the cost is low over here in this because not many people are there. So that's about initiating process group for you all. Will help you understand concepts of project management for initiating, how you can be a good PM, how you start a project, use these inputs for your interviews or managing a project in a better way, or for your PMP planning process group. The best thing that the project manager does is plan, plan, plan. So waterfall project or agile project, we keep planning things, we keep revising things, because planning saves a lot of time, effort, money on the project. It avoids a lot of risk, but there is a way to plan. PMI suggests there is a way to plan, how we have to plan. In this video, I'm going to talk to you everything about planning process group, and then I'll tell you the order of planning. How do you plan the entire project? So in planning process group, we are going to determine and plan how are we going to do the entire planning for all the knowledge areas. How many knowledge areas are there? There are 10 knowledge areas. How do you plan to plan all of these knowledge areas, starting from scope, time, cost, quality, resources, communication, and then after that you have got risk, stakeholder, procurement, stakeholder, and the topmost is the integration that integrates all these 9 knowledge areas, the planning of all these 9 knowledge areas. Very, very important. So we have to determine how are we going to plan all of these. Then we'll also talk about how we're going to execute these knowledge areas, and then how to monitor and control these knowledge areas, what needs to be done on the project. So PMI gives us a lovely framework of planning, executing, monitoring, controlling things. So this framework helps us understand and plan the project in a very nice way to ensure that there's minimal risk on the project. Okay, so what are we planning? We're planning on the stakeholders. How do we work with stakeholders? The requirements. How are we going to gather requirements? How do you put the scope boundary? What are the durations after the estimation? What is the cost on the project? What is the quality? What kind of process are we expecting? What are the CPIs? What are the KPIs? What are the defect densities? Okay, what is the release performance index? Right, so we want to check all of this. What are the defect leaks in production? So we want to put a quality check on. Then resources, like how many resources, how many seniors, how many juniors, what are the roles, right? We plan all of these things. Then the communication plan. Are we doing weekly communications to the stakeholders, or so you're having fortnightly steer co or a monthly steer co, or is it a weekly team meeting or daily stand up? You want to plan all of that. Then we're going to plan like what are the risk identifications we're going to do, how are you going to kind of understand the different types of risk on the project, qualitative, quantitative, plan for the responses, and then we talk about how do we procure things for the project on the procurement, and then the changes and the configuration management plan. Change and configuration plan, I'll just talk to you in the next slide. Okay, so we're going to determine how we're going to plan all of these things for planning, executing, and controlling for all these 10 knowledge areas. Then next thing is, before the planning process, we are initiating where we got the project charter. The project charter had things on a very high level, right? Now we are going to refine it. We're going to do more details. We're going to do a breakdown of this, right? We'll take the scope, we'll put a work breakdown structure. From that will come the activity list, and then from the activity list, we'll sequence the activities. Then will come the activity durations, and then after that, we'll try to prepare the critical path. Right, so refine high level requirements is the next step. We're going to be very specific, detailed, more requirements, so more discussions, more engagements. If you're in agile, you have got like weekly sprint or bi-weekly sprints, sorry, a sprint for like 2 weeks. So every beginning of every sprint you've got a planning, you're getting more details, you're refining things, right? So that's going to happen. So more requirements, put a boundary of the scope, right? That's what's happening over here now in planning process group. Now, then we expand on the initial assumptions. So whatever the assumptions we had in the project charter, we are going to expand on those assumptions. We're going to document those assumptions in assumption log. Okay, then after the constraints, what are the different constraints on the project, or what are the ones going to kind of impact the project output, right? So between the three important constraints are called the triple constraints, like time, cost, and scope. These are the triple constraints, very important for your PMP exams or for your interviews, right? The scope is the driving constraint that drives time and cost. Okay, more scope, more time, more cost; less scope, less time, less cost. Okay, the scope drives everything. Remember this very important part for your project management work. Okay, so always be having an eye on the scope. Whenever the scope increase, you have to go and check things, ensure that there's no scope creep, wherein the customer is asking you to do more thing, or there is no gold plating, wherein you want to give a lot of value features to customer which is not asking. We don't want to do both of that. Okay, we want to stick on the scope and make money out of the project, meet our margins and benefit, and solve the problem for the customer, right? So constraints are being more specific and more detailed. And then requirements, we analyze the requirements, prioritize by the requirements. This is where we're going to build the requirement traceability matrix, RTM, where we'll talk about the origin, objective, and the owner of the requirements, something what we put in our Jira, and we kind of track things for the project, right? So that's the RTM which we have. So we are now expanding on all of these things. Okay, we are just not doing high level. Now it's called detail, right? We're putting time, effort, right? We're putting more time and effort on planning. At least you can put, like, say, for a 3-month project, you can put at least a week or more for planning itself, right? To get details. Then what are we are creating? We are creating the project scope statement. So from the project charter, we've got the high level requirements. From that, we can define the scope, and then the collect requirements, and then after that, we're gonna put a boundary of the scope. We came up with the project scope statement. We made the work breakdown structure. We put the work breakdown dictionary, and we created the scope baseline. What are we going to do on the project? What are we not going to do on the project? Very, very important, right? What work are we going to do? Right? What is out of scope has to be also defined very nicely. So project scope statement contains that. It has the baselines, and then we get the final approval on the scope from the customer before doing more planning, right? Because if the customer says I need more things, then you have to plan that also. So approval from customer is very, very important during the planning process group. You have to see what I have observed in the last 8 years as a project manager or delivery manager, any role that I've been playing, right? The more you talk to people around you as a project manager, the more successful you're going to be. The more you communicate with the customer, you clarify things, the more you communicate with your internal stakeholders, your managers, your supervisors, your cross-functional teams, the dependencies, right? So I always say that the best tool people have is the mobile phone as a project manager, right? You just take the cell phone and call up people, or you ring them on the IP phone, or you call them from the you Slack them, or you talk to them, right? So that's the best thing. Or getting on a Zoom call or a Teams meeting, that's the best tool I have seen. The more we talk, the more easier it's going to manage the project. Okay, so that's one thing. Then after that, get approval from stakeholders. On the project scope statement, we're going to tell what are the deliverables on the project, right? Or release 1, release 2, or like what is the release 1, maybe just the first part of the project, then second part of the project. Okay, so all these things have to be planned in the planning process group. Then draft of documents for the contracts for the procurement, like what kind of vendor are you looking for, put a project procurement statement of work, what are the selection criteria for these people, right? Whoever you're going to give the award the project, you have should have a selection criteria. You're going to find out that, and then you put the contract provisions. Okay, so you put all of this, and you also lay down some processes now. So the processes are like, okay, how are you going to reward the team, how are you going to check the quality on the project, right? As I told you, this is the CPIs, the KPIs, the defect leaks. Okay, what is the change management approval process? What are the different environments we have? All these things we have to talk on the quality process, right? And then approve or reject or manage the changes, right? And then you also conduct the kickoff meeting that happens at the end of the planning process. Once you have planned everything, you do kickoff. Okay, so now moving forward more, so you engage, as I told you, you engage with a lot of people, you talk to more people, you understand many things on the project. Okay, so you work with the PO and the business representatives from the project, and then after that you've got the vendors, the functional managers, you're going to work with them. Okay, so you have to talk to people, you have to use the PO to understand more requirements, vendors, because you have to outsource something to another team, you have to know that. And then after, functional managers, because you have to kind of get the team members from them. Okay, engage with them so that you work on the stakeholders of the requirement, the scope, schedule, cost, all of the knowledge areas, right? You work with them. Then you break down the deliverables into smaller manageable units. What is that? Work package is a manageable unit, a small unit of work that we manage. Okay, you will not have like say 100-day work to be given to you, right? That will be broken down into maybe say then features and then stories and tasks, right? We're going to break it down. That becomes a work package. Then the work breakdown structure, you've got control accounts, you're going to make it into smaller packages, and then you've got some tasks under that, right? So you're going to do that. How do you do that? From the scope is what we build. Go to the work breakdown structure that consists of the entire scope of the project. From that, you make the work breakdown dictionary for each item that needs to be worked upon. The work breakdown dictionary has got details like what is the cost, effort, time, dependencies, okay, the details of the requirement, all of this mentioned in the work breakdown dictionary. Okay, and from the work breakdown dictionary, you make the activity list. From the activity list, you sequence the activities. Okay, once you sequence the activities, you're going to estimate these activities, right? And you see with the time and cost for that. Then you go for time, you come with the critical path. For cost, to come with the determine the budget. So these things you do by breaking down the manageable, the deliverables into manageable parts. If you don't break down deliverables, it's going to be very difficult for you to manage. You'll not be able to measure tangible outputs quickly. Okay, so it's very important to break down the deliverables. Okay, then for agile approach, you've got the product backlog, the same as work program structure, and more requirements, and you define them. Okay, you talk about the requirements, are there any new requirements going to coming, because many times the scope keeps changing. So something goes in, something comes out in agile, so more requirements keep coming in. If the fixed price working, more things come in, you have to take more money. Understand that. Change management process. So we're going to talk about like how are we going to approve the changes on the project, right? When are we going to take the change management approval? When the baselines are getting impacted, when something is done that's not along with the project charter, these times you're going to kind of come and do the change management, change request. Okay, understand the difference between change management and configuration management. Okay, change management is an approval process that comes into picture when something is not working on the project, to get the project back on the track by using some contingency or management reserve. Contingency reserve don't need a change request, but management reserve do need a change request. Okay, and then after that you have got configuration management. Configuration management plan talks about the versioning of the code or the documents, all these things, right? Version 1, 2, 3, what is so all, how are you configuring the deliverables, right? So that it talks about that. So that's about the change and configuration. So you do this also in the planning process scope. Okay, then we do estimations of time, cost, resources, people resources, material resources. And for large projects, you'll have like multiple baselines on cost, or let's say material cost baseline, people cost baseline, and then after say you've got infrastructure cost baseline. Like for larger projects, you'll have 2 or 3 cost baselines also, right? And then you've got the schedule baseline, you've got a critical path, then you've got something called near critical path, and then you've got the scope baseline. You estimate everything in the planning process group. How do you estimate? You take the help of the team members and experts and estimate. You determine the level of accuracy. Because now in the planning process group, in the initiating we had Arham estimates. Now you have got the budgeted estimates, wherein you've got a buffer of like 10 to 15%. Okay, you're getting more closer now. Okay, so that's the level of accuracy. Okay, you're gonna define like what kind of estimation you're gonna do. Are you going a 3 point estimation, analogous estimation, bottom up estimation? All of these things you're gonna talk in the determining the level of accuracy. And then use the historical data, find the critical path. Okay, very very important of the project is finding the critical path. Critical path helps you kind of find out the risk on the project, the dependencies on the project, okay, any issues on the project, something that can be reused on the project. What are the interconnection, what is first, what is second, predecessor, successor, all of this will be coming in the critical path. It helps you ease the project. Okay, then you have to meet the function managers, get the resources, and then after that finally you come up with the final time cost estimates, which are only after analyzing all the risk on the project. Okay, so you see the impact on the scope, the deliverables, the resources, sequence of activities, other projects. So you do a iteration along all these knowledge areas, and then you come with the final plan. Okay, the plan just doesn't come like that. Without risk management, without analyzing the risk, without identifying the risk, your plan is not complete. Remember that. Okay, and finally you come with the kickoff meeting. Okay, so those were the things about the planning process group. Now I will talk to you about order of the processes in the planning process group. What comes first, second, third, fourth. From the PMI Springbox way of ordering things, I've put on a table or block diagram step by step. So first let's have a look at it. It starts off with the integration management. So first we arrange the knowledge areas. We've got 10 knowledge areas: integration, scope, schedule or time, cost, quality management, resource management, communication management, risk management, procurement management, stakeholder management. Okay, so this is the order of all the 10 knowledge areas. Okay, I've also recorded a separate video on how to remember the PMP process chart. The reason I take an example of house and how this all these 10 knowledge areas come one after the other, so that becomes easier for you. Now in the integration management, what are we doing? The first thing is we're going to say find out how do we do the project. Is it what kind of project life cycle are we going to the waterfall or agile, or and now to plan for each knowledge, how do we plan for each knowledge areas? We talk about all of this in integration management. So this kind of it consummates, or it takes the whole 9 knowledge areas, and then finally we come up with the plan for all the 9 knowledge areas. Each knowledge area has their own plan. Scope management has a plan, scope management or scope management plan. Schedule management or schedule management plan. Cost has got cost management plan. So those plans are there. Okay, you watch my video on how to memorize the process chart. I've explained all of these things in that video. Now in the scope management, or the first thing you're going to do, you're going to determine the project priorities. If you got like say 100 stories to be done, right, and the scope was finally decided, okay, we're going to do the 60 stories for this $100K. Now what are the 60 stories? The customer has to prioritize and tell you what are these 60 stories you're going to do. Okay, so first to prioritize, determine, and then create a project scope statement. What is in scope, what is out of the scope, what is the scope boundaries, what you're not doing, right, and then what's the work breakdown structure, what the work breakdown dictionary. All of these details have to be shared. Then check if you need procurement based on the scope. Now like for example, in one of the projects we do, we had to go and get the UI developers because we didn't have UI developers from outside. We are a product company, right? So we had to go and find out the best UI team who can give us the UI developers. So that we had to go and procure from outside. We had to plan this based on the scope. Okay, scope is telling us what we have to go now. Though the procurement management process comes down, but you have to see what needs to be procured. You have to plan it when the scope is being done. Then after the initial team for planning, you don't need the entire team. You just need the project manager, maybe a solution guy, or the solution architect, and then after that you might have a technical expert who's done the project just to plan out things. Okay, then create the work breakdown structure, work breakdown dictionary, and finally getting the cause of the scope baseline. Okay, after that, once you have the work breakdown structure, as I told you, it goes into the activity list. Okay, then you sequence the activities, then you kind of determine the critical part, right? Put the sequence activities in network diagram, what comes first, what comes second. It is still not the critical path. We're just putting first, second, so because it's still not estimated things, right? Then you estimate the resource requirements based on the kind of work we are doing on each of the activities. We're going to put the durations, then you put the activity durations. Okay, then determine the critical path. Okay, so after the critical path is done, you develop the schedule. Okay, you put what are the parallel activities, the sequence activities, what is the float on the project, what is the buffer on the project, right? You rearrange all these things. So there's a separate 4 videos on schedule management wherein I have explained everything on schedule management, and also there are like 4 problems I've recorded. It's on the schedule management wherein you'll get to see how to build the critical path, how to take the float in consideration, how to have the buffers, what happens things in parallel, what happens leads and lags. So all of these I've recorded on another video. The link will be on the top. You can watch that video to get more details. Now, once schedule management is done, you go to the cost management. Because you have already estimated the resources, you can now determine the budget. You have already kind of put the sequence of activities, you know who needs to come and work when. You can put the determine the entire budget for the project. Again, now determine the budget, you can put the ranges. You want to take a standard deviation. If you want to do 3-point estimation, you're going to talk about all of those things and determine the budget. Then quality management, you're going to determine the quality processes, standards and metrics for the project, right? As I told you, CPIs, KPIs, defect density, release performance index. Okay, and then after that, like what was the margins you have on the project, all this you can decide, right? Resource management, now you're going to build a team charter, roles and responsibilities. You put the team pyramid, who will be there, how many people will be there, who's going to do what. You're going to plan all of those things. That's the order of things. Then once you have people, you've got the plan communication management and the stakeholder engagement. You're going to talk about that. Finally, the risk management, you're going to identify the risk, then find out what is called, do the qualitative risk analysis, quantitative risk analysis, and the risk response planning in the planning process group. Then after that, you repeat the above to plan risk actions for all the knowledge areas. Finally, finalize the procurement strategy and the documents, like whom are you going to select, what are the documents needed. Okay, so this is the order you have, followed with how do you get the final plan, right? So you also create the change management plan, configuration management plan, finalize all the management plans, get the approval from the sponsor, and develop a realistic plan with the baselines. Okay, be realistic, stand your ground, be open about the project, why it can be done, why it cannot be in the duration of time, and then probably make the realistic plan. Just don't go and accept anything that the customer is saying, because if it's not possible, this the number of resources and the money giving, you have to tell it's not possible this time. Okay, then gain formal approval of the plan. Okay, finally do the project kickoff. So these are the order of activities on the planning process group. In the next video, I'll talk to you about the executing process group. So I'm going to tell you everything about executing the project. We'll understand in detail how, as a project manager, you should execute the project, how you need to work with the team, how you need to ensure the quality checks, how do you kind of work with the other stakeholders, how do you kind of take care of the changes that happen. Okay, so very important. In this video, we'll learn in detail how, as a project manager, you will take care of the issues, the fixes, and ensure the project is on track. You're following the baselines to deliver a very good project. Executing project process group is very important, because this is where the actual work gets done. Okay, now before we start the executing of the project, we need to have 2 things with us. One is the project management plan should be ready. Second, the change management plan. How do you take corrective actions, right? So those plans should be ready, the change control board should be ready, a process should be ready, and then you can start the executing of the project. Okay, so that's how it gets begun. Now I want to explain you how the 5 process groups, initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing, overlap with each other. Okay, even on waterfall projects, or even on, say, predictive life cycle projects, right? These process groups overlap. Okay, so there's an overlap between planning, monitoring, executing, controlling, and then after that monitoring, and then executing and monitoring, controlling, and planning. So there's a lot of overlap that happen. Okay, I want you to visually see this and understand how a project is very dynamic. Projects are very dynamic. Okay? Project management is not linear, right? So you need somebody to manage this, because a lot of things happen around. Okay, so let's try to understand this. So the level of activity also plotted on one side, the time on one side. So initiating, you see, so initiating happens in the beginning of the project. Now after initiating comes planning, but during initiating itself, there is some effort put on planning also. More effort happens in planning after you have the project charter ready. Okay, so initiating is done, then planning is happening, and then after that, you, let's say you spend 5 to 10% effort on initiating, you spend at least 15-20% on planning, then most of the time and level of activity goes on the executing process group. lot of time, 50 to 60%, some 60 to 70% of the time also goes on executing the project. Okay, you have to work on the deliverables, you have to ensure how you're getting the work done. This is the time you're working with other teammates, you're working on the software or any kind of project you're working on. You're working on issues, you're working on addressing the risk, right? You're working with the teammates or resolving conflicts, you're conducting procurements, right? All of this is happening over here. And then finally, you've got the monitoring and controlling process groups that spreads across the entire duration of the project. Okay, so you see here it's going from starting from the initiating till the end, it's spread across, right? It goes to all the process groups. And finally, you've got closing process group that has got a major overlap with monitoring and controlling. Okay, so initiating and closing do not have any overlap. These are two separate groups of work that happens, but there is overlap in planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling. Remember this when you're trying to understand process groups. Okay, and very important, don't get confused that process groups are phase gates. Project phase gates are different, process groups are different. Phase is an end of a delivery or deliverable. Okay, it could be end of design, it could be end of development, end of testing, going live. There's going to be 4 different phases, and each phase will have this initiating, planning, executing, controlling, monitoring, closing in an adaptive life cycle project. Okay, or if you're looking into different phases, like say first phase for rural, next phase for urban, the next phase for like you have got say web app or something. So those can be the 4 different phases, and each phase will have all these 5 process groups: initiating, planning, monitoring, controlling, executing, initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing groups. So those can happen in together. Okay, that's how these process groups occur. So don't get confused, process groups are not project phases. Okay, process groups is a way to execute the project. It's a process, understand this. Okay, now the most important thing that we're going to do in the executing process group is the work, the delivery. Just do it, right? By following the plan. The delivery has to happen. You're gonna build the software, you're gonna test the software, you're gonna look for issues in the software, right? So you're gonna build this software over here, and then you'll gather a lot of data. Okay, the most important thing that you're getting from this process group is the delivery. Understand this. As I told you, the delivery is important. Once you start working on delivery, you start producing deliverables. Maybe it could be a software, a mobile software, or an application development software, or maybe a system software, or if you're working on construction project, it could be a home. So you're producing deliverables. Okay, what is major output over you're getting is you're producing deliverables, right? How you're producing deliverables, we'll also gather some data on that. Okay, so then after that, you gather a lot of data. Now, how is the work done? You're trying to understand and see how is the work done. So you're gathering a lot of data. Like for example, you could gather data on team performances, who's putting more output, right? Is the resource being utilized? Is the burn rate fine? Okay, is the capacity and effort, meaning are the earned value, planned value kind of being utilized, right? So you're gonna gather that data, right? Other seniors folks doing their work, junior folks doing that data can be recorded. Then you can record the data on the burn down chart, right? How much of story points you're burning. In Agile, take your burn down chart, story points. How many story points are we burning, right? Or what are the deliverables getting delivered? What are the features we are closing? What are the stories, epics, features, stories, tasks, subtasks? All of these can be tracked. Means you gather a lot of data over here. Okay, so you're just seeing like how is this data, how the people are working, who's doing some work in 4 days, who's doing something in 5 days, who had planned for 5 days and did it took 7 to 8 days. What is the problem? Who had planned for 5 days and did it for like 3 to 4 days? What is the advantage? What was done separately? So gathering lot of data to understand your project. Okay, so you have to do a lot of data gathering. Okay, then so all of this data gathering is done by a sheet called as check sheet. Check sheet is just data gathering. Checklist is like kind of number of steps of doing something. It is a flow. It's like a flow chart. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, like deployment checklist. Check sheets are more of a data gathering tool. Okay, remember this for your PMP examination. So any data gathering you do is called as a check sheet. Okay, Then you follow the quality processes. Now you want to check, if you're an IT project, you go and follow the quality process. You want to check how many defects are there, how many are like low, medium, high. Then after that, you want to check the severity of this defects, and then you want to see how many defects are catching in the local environment, in the end-to-end testing environment, in the UAT environment, how many defects are kind of getting passed from the UAT or from the local environment. You want to gather all of this data, and then you want to follow the process. You want to check like what were the metrics you set, what are the CPIs, what were the KPIs, right? What was the release performance index, what was the defect density, what was the defect leak, right? So all of these things you have set this standards in the planning process group. Now you want to follow and check, are we kind of following these standards, right? Like how many lines of code is getting done, written, right? All those things you have to track. So all the processes you have to follow. Then maintain issue log and raid logs. Very, very important when you're working on project. A very important part, every project manager should maintain raid logs. So raid logs are like, you want to capture what identify what is the risk, what are the risk mitigation plans, who's the owner, what is the impact, when are you going to close the risk, what is the status of the risk. You want to catch up that in the risk register. Okay, then actions, you have to, after meetings are done, after work is getting done, you want to capture the action items, who owns it, by when is it going to get closed, what are the ETS. It is a simple Excel sheet or a Confluence page that you need to track, or you can put it on Jira board also, right? Then you want to track what are the issues right now on the project, right? Where is the problem? So the difference between risk and issues, like risk is the probability of event that could be like positive or negative that can occur, uncertainty, right? Issue is an issue, is a problem already occurred. Okay, that's the difference. Okay, probability of an issue is one, probability of risk, it may or may not occur. Okay, then you have to work on the dependencies. You have to check like where are things stuck, which team has got which dependency. All of this helps you come from a critical path. You go and see the network diagram, see, you get on the dependencies of the project. You check with the different cross-functional teams and understand dependencies. Very, very important for a project manager to track the raid logs on a project. Okay, this is the most important part of the executing process group. Then you will refine the work to be delivered. You do progressive elaboration. Okay, now you've got the stories, you've got the planning that happens, sprint planning if you're doing an agile project. So you elaborate, you go in detail, you break down the epics into features, features into stories, stories into tasks. You have people working on them, so a lot of details have, right? So who's going to work on that? So you do the breakdown of the deliverables, and you've got the people working. You can also take work packages and work groups and work on them. So refine the work that needs to be delivered happens in the executing process group. Okay, so it's like the definitive estimate with just a leeway of like 5%, plus or minus 5%, or 5 to 10% of range is what is collected over here. Then after that, now you're observing things and improving, right? Like what happened in sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3. You're doing sprint demos, sprint retrospectives. Now you're continuously improving things. That's called Kaizen, empirical way to improve, right? Agile is all about empirical way of improving things, wherein you do and learn from that. You don't just learn historical data. You learn from how the way things are being done. You check and then you improve. Okay, so that happens. Then you conduct review meetings, sprint review, demos. You call the product owners, you call the business users, you do the demo, you show them, you get feedback, and then you incorporate the feedback. You address it in the next sprint if there's something to be addressed immediately. Then you have retrospectives. How did the things go well? Like what can be improved, what went well, what didn't go well, right? What can be improved, what are the action items? So all of these things are part of your empirical way of improving things. That's a continuous improvement. That's Kaizen, what we're doing, right? Then you onboard the team. So to do the work as project manager, you have to have people. So you onboard a team in executing process group. You manage the team. You take care of the needs. You remove the roadblocks. You ensure they've got the basic things that they need. You keep them motivated. You keep the like hygienic. Okay, so all those things you do, and you ensure you give the rewards, recognition, perks. Right? You have to manage people now. Then you evaluate team performances. You have one-on-ones, you have got appraisals, quarterly appraisals, half-yearly appraisals, monthly appraisals, or whatever is the standard you have in your organization, right? So you will evaluate the team performances. Okay. Now then you conduct team building activities. So you want to have fun at work. You want to keep people motivated, right? You want to keep a culture when people come and work together, wherein they feel like having some fun at work, right? So you take them for outings, you take them for quarterly outings, you kind of have fun at work activities, you have some indoor games, you have got things recreation at the office place. So you conduct team building activities, and even work breakdown structure, building work breakdown structure is also a team building activity. Remember that PMI says that, right? All of this you do to build trust among your team members too, so that they can back up each other and ensure they see the big picture of the project and deliver the project and get success on the project. Okay, so that's important. Then after that you reward the team, based on the performances, right? So that also happens, the rewards and recognition happens. So you give them certificates, you give them perks, you give them Amazon vouchers, so anything will happen, right? So rewarding them. You resolve conflicts. If people are not happy working with each other, you have to resolve the conflicts. So PMI suggests like there are multiple ways of solve conflicts, like problem solving, smoothing, and then after that you have got withdrawal, right? So then all of things, enforcing, right? So all of these ways are to use to resolve conflicts. I've got recorded a separate short series on all of these things that a project manager does. 20 plus videos of shorts on all the important concepts to manage team and ensure you deliver the project. You can watch it in my short series. I'll be putting a link over here. Okay, then after that you release the team members. Once the project is done, you release the team members. All of this you're doing in the executing process group. Okay, then you facilitate discussions with stakeholders, right? Very, very important. It could be weekly team meeting, it could be a status meeting with the team, it could be the daily scrums, right? Steer course, escalations, demos, retrospectives. Daily scrums is the most famous that's right now that happens. So you can have daily scrum meetings with them. So all of these discussions are facilitated. You do all of this in this particular process group. Okay, the lot of data you gather, then you infer from the data, work performance data is gathered, then you move it into the command and controlling and give the reports, right? So then you implement risk responses, like what are the risks there, then what is the response you're going to implement. So all the risk responses are implemented in this process group. Okay, now you also check is there a need for change request, right? Like for example, somebody wanted a house to be built, right? After the house was built, the project was signed, right? Everything was done. Now they came back, no, we want a couple of windows and a chimney. So that needs a change request because it's not a part of the baseline, right? So you have to check that is there need for change request, then get the change request, initiate it, get it approved, right? Implement any contingency plans. Okay, if there is a delay, somebody fell sick, right? What are the contingency plans? Or the duration of the project was reduced, right? What is the contingency measures? All of this will be implemented now. Okay, evaluate and negotiate with sellers, sign a contract. So you do all the negotiations over here, you conduct the procurement, then you evaluate them, you kind of get these things done, you negotiate, and you get the contract awarded. Okay, finally you update documents like risk registers based on the actions you've taken, the new risks that come up. So risk can be pointed out by anybody on the project. It's just not the project manager has to point out the risk. I always ask this question in my team meetings: what are the issues, what are the risks, right? Anything that you need my to look into, right? So risk register, project plans updated, issue logs, change logs, stakeholder is updated, new people joining the team, and lessons learned registered. All of this is being updated. So these are the activities we are doing in the executing process group. Now that we have executed the project, the work has begun. We need to now start tracking many things on the project. Okay, and that's the part of the monitoring and controlling process group. We want to control the project. We don't want to let it loose so that we lose on the money, on the durations, or get impacted on the reputation, right? So we want to monitor and control the entire project. It's not talking about like a micromanagement, but we need to monitor and we need to check many important things on the project. Okay, let's try to understand how does project manager need to manage a project. Okay, let's get started off. Okay, so again, let's look into the process group thing. So in monitoring and controlling, you see here, there's an overlap between the initiating till the end of the project. So with more overlap in the executing and monitoring and controlling process group. So here we see that the moment we do something, we have to go off monitor and control it. For example, let's say today morning you built a piece of code in the first half of the day, and now you are giving it to the QA to test it. Okay, now you're actually validating the code. Okay, so you're like, controlling, you're doing checking the interim deliverables, you're doing the validations from the QA, or you're doing control quality is happening, right? So it happens on the same day. So there's overlap of things is happening on the same day, right? So executing is done, or build is done. Now you want to run control, and then you want to gather data and see, okay, how was this? Is this fine? Or is a lot of defects coming in? Then you prepare the work performance report from the information, and then take some action on that. Okay, so that's about this process, how the things are what I want to show, right? So it can happen on the same day. Both executing and monitoring can happen on the same day. It doesn't need to be in a very waterfall manner. It can happen in an agile manner also on the same day. Okay, then the closing process group, right? Now, what are we doing here? Monitoring, controlling. We are measuring the time. We are measuring the cost. We're measuring the efforts, right? We are measuring the burn rates. We are looking into the revenue recognition. Okay, so we're measuring all these things. We're measuring against what? Against the baselines. What we had planned initially, we are planning. We are measuring the work against that. Okay, then we want to analyze the data, whatever we are capturing, right? Based on the burn down charts or the velocity or the number of defects. We want to get all this data, which is the gathered data from in the executing process, which happens to be an info work performance information to the monitoring control process group. We gather this data and information, then analyze this, and then prepare reports and tell management where we need help, where we don't need help, where are the issues, where do you foresee a risk, right? So we want to analyze this data in the monitoring and controlling process group. Then we want to control time, cost, and scope to the baselines. Okay, then when we are analyzing this, we look for variances. Okay, I had planned this particular activity for like 5 days, it's taking like 7 days, so there's variance of 2 days. Now what is my plan? Should I have to crash something? Should I need to kind of do some resource leveling, or do I have to do some fast tracking to make this up, or should I use a contingency reserve? So we start looking for variances, planned versus actuals, right? Are there any variances? If there are any variances, then we have to address them. Okay, so the different ways of addressing the variance. We'll talk about under budget, over budget, or under schedule, we are behind the schedule, or ahead of the schedule. We look into all of those things based on the earned value management, but look for variances. Okay, so earned value management. Earned value management is for the amount of effort you have put in. What is the value of earned on the scope, right? So what the effort advantage is like good. We are on track. We did $100 of work. We put $100 and we got in return $100 of work. So we are still happy with that, right? That's good. Okay, now we track things like SPI, schedule performance index. Okay, schedule performance index is a ratio of earned value to planned value. Planned value is the dollar value of the work for schedule. Okay, so like for example, I plan to do something in 3 days and I do it in 3 days for $100 per day. So the planned value was like $300 for 3 days. So that's the in terms of dollars, right? So for 3 days I did a work of $300. That's in terms of schedule. I'm going to take that as the planned value. Okay, and earned value is again the $300. I've earned work for $300. That's the earned value. So you want to convert schedule into a dollar, so you use planned value. For converting the cost, it's actual cost. Okay, so that's easy for us. So the cost performance index. Okay, then now we want to check now how is this index, how's the index doing? Is the schedule performance index greater than 1? Then we are happy. If the EV by PV ratio is more than 1, means we are ahead of the schedule. I plan to do something in 3 days, but I've already done it in like say 1.5 day. I still have 1.5 day left, so that's like ahead of the schedule. Then what is SPI less than 1? So schedule performance index less than 1 means I plan to do something in 3 days, but it's taking 4 days, right? So I'm actually behind the schedule. Okay, ratios less than 1 is behind and not good. Ratios more than 1 is ahead and is always good. Okay, then you've got cost variance. Cost variance is the value of the earned value minus the actual cost. A positive cost variance is always good, negative is bad. Similarly, for schedule performance index, positive is good, negative is bad. Again, you put the same example, put the values and get this cost variance. Cost performance index, again, it's a ratio of earned value to the actual cost. Again, for a cost performance index of greater than 1, you're under budget, means you have got more money. Okay, for cost performance index less than 1, your money is over and you're like over budget. You need more money now to do things. Okay, remember these things, very important in planning the project, to take a good decision for a PMP examination, right? For interviews, you might get questions on this. So that's about it. Okay, then Now, based on the analysis of this data, based on these variances, based on these indexes, now what should you do? Okay, as a project manager, you should take some corrective actions. Now, what is the threshold you have said that when is that I'll go and fetch my contingent reserve or my management reserve? When my SPI is it less than 3, less than zero point 0.7? Ideally, the standards are if it goes less than zero point 0.7, then you have to go and use management reserves, or you have to replan the entire project because the baselines will get impacted. Because 30% margin on the work is what you expect, but now you are actually behind by 30% of the work, so you'll have to go and take some action. Okay, so corrective actions based on these numbers: SPI number, CPI number, cost variance number, or scheduled variance numbers. You'll take this corrective actions. Okay. Now look for trends. So what is the trend you're looking for? Like okay, you're looking for a lot of trend on the resource performance, or looking trends on the quality of the work. Right. So those things, start looking for trends in the monitoring control process group. Okay. Now let's say this change calls for a big change. Right. There is a change to the baseline now. Then you have to perform integrated change control. You have to raise a change request. Okay, when the baselines of the project are impacted, when the CPI and SPI is less than zero point 0.7, 100% sure you have to go and kind of raise a new change request and get add on money or add on time from the customer. Okay, means you're on the back foot. Okay, then approve these changes. Oh no, once you can implement only the approved changes. If something is not approved, you cannot implement it. Okay. Then update the project management. So what else you can do? You can update the project management documents, the project management plans, because you're making changes, some corrective actions, so that the calls an update into these documents. Inform stakeholders of this change. So let's say there's a big change we need to do. You have to, like for example, we're doing one project where you're going to get access for at least 3 to 4 weeks. It's a fixed price project. So then the team was just sitting idle. So we had to tell customer, you are supposed to pay us more money for 4 more weeks in order to get the project done, because you guys didn't give us the access immediately, right? So you have to inform stakeholders about this. Okay, the right stakeholders. Then monitor stakeholder engagement. See how the stakeholders are engaging with your monitoring controlling processor, right? Who's interested? Who's kind of having the power? Who is just being supportive? Who's silent, right? You have to monitor stakeholder engagement on the project, because these guys will help you get things done when there is a need. Okay. Confirm configuration version changes. So what is the change in the version code, right? So the new builds are coming in, so you have to know what are the new changes going in. So confirm configuration management changes or versioning or nomenclature. You do this in monitoring control process group. And get approval on the interim rules, like the QA sign off, or you can send it to UAT, the UAT sign off. It's not production, but you can interim approval sign offs. Okay, so get approval on the interim deliverables. Create forecast. So create forecast on the schedule performance index, cost performance index, estimate to complete, right, or to complete performance index. Start creating this forecast and monitoring controlling process group. Then very important, inspect. You have to regularly inspect the software you're building it. So QA is very important. Have different try-age calls. Okay, and then after that you have some demos, right? Then observe and take actions. Okay, so all this is important. Now in agile projects, how do we do it? We kind of have the regular inspections in terms of daily scrums. Every day 15 minutes I'm meeting, asking people what you did yesterday, what you plan to do today, and are there any roadblocks, right? And then you've got sprint demos, where every 15 days you call people and show them the demo of the project, what has been built for the last 15 days, and get a fine sign off from the customer, so that you get faster feedback. That's an empirical way of learning, right? Learning from your own way of doing things. Okay, then conduct retrospectives. Okay, so all these things are important as a part of your monitoring control process group when you're taking feedback. Then improve the quality. So inspections, all this is done. Now you are improving quality, so with the inspections, taking corrective actions. Okay, now review the risk and and reassess the risk. Okay, so you'll have to look into risk. Now what kind of risk is this? Do you want to kind of mitigate this risk or transfer this risk, or you want to accept this risk, right? Or you want to kind of share this with somebody else? So do all those things on the risk. Okay, look into this register. Then manage the reserves. Now, do you need the reserve? So do you take out the management reserve? You need management reserve. Are you going to talk to leadership and get more money? Is the project in such a bad state that you can't do it with the help of leadership, right? Then finally you manage, evaluate, and close the procurements. Okay, so you once you do the customer, close the procurement, manage and evaluate the customers based on selection criteria, all those things. So that's about all of the activities you will be doing on monitoring controlling process group. Closing a project. So the most important part of the project, wherein we kind of hand over things to customer and get a sign off and then celebrate. So this is the part of the project wherein we conclude the project, we close the project. So let's try to understand what are the activities we are going to do in the closing process group. Very important for you to understand this because it will help you on your day-to-day project management. If you're going for project management interviews, this video will help you in the series of the 5 process group videos: initiating, planning, executing, one control, and closing. Closing is the last one, so that covers everything of the project management process groups and gets an idea, high-level idea of the projects. Okay, and then if you're going for PMP examination, very important for you to understand how to close a project, because closing just doesn't mean that you're relieving the teammates on the team. Okay, now let's try to understand what is there in the closing process group. So steps to close a project. The most important step, any guesses? The most important step on the project is getting the customer's expectation. Okay, meeting the customer's expectation, delivering value to the customer, right? So what was agreed in the initial requirements, are we delivering that? So that's the most important thing. What is there in the project plan, the charter, the agreements? Did we deliver that to the customer? That's the most important thing we're going to accept on the when closing the project. It has to meet that. Then check the requirements, go and check all the requirements, the acceptance criteria. Did we deliver that? Did we get sign off on the interim deliverables from the customer? And finally, the final sign off from the customer on the requirements, right? Whatever requirements were agreed initially, did we deliver that to the customer? So that's very important. Second step in the closing process. Then obtain sign off. So whatever we delivered, we just want to say on call comes, okay, fine, happy, we are it's working fine. No, you need to get a formal sign off from the customer. There has to be an email saying that, okay, what was expected, this is what we got it here, we are fine to go kind of provide a sign off, and then the project can go to the next phase or project can close. Okay, then negotiate in case there are some issues, minor issues, so you can negotiate with the customer and say, okay, these things will address in the next phase or whatever happens, right? So if there are any issues, you have to negotiate with the customer. Okay, then capture the lessons learned. Very, very important. Go back and see how was this project, what were the new skills acquired in the project, how did you guys manage defects, what was the rate at which defects were coming in, how did you kind of manage the team, how did you kind of schedule the calls, how do you keep the stakeholders updated, right? And then after that, like, how do you solve issues, how do you kind of work with the cross-functional teams, right? And then after that, how do you deliver the outputs, how are the demos going on, what are the lessons learned, what went well, what didn't go well. Capture data from data info things, so that you prepare all this data, have it handy, make it a report so that you can use it in the future projects, put it in the organizational process assets, so that this data can be used, this information can be used. From these lessons learned, you can improve the future projects. Note down things like, okay, for these kind of components, this much time we took, these are the experts on the project, okay, this is a new skill acquired, these are the junior guys who need to kind of learn things, right? So make a note of all of this, capture all the lessons learned on the project. How many change requests came in, how many changes were done to the baselines, why do these things happen, why was there a delay, which constraints got impacted more. Note down, capture lessons learned, and that will be very helpful for you for future project. It could be as simple as a Excel sheet. You want to capture this information. Then note down the skills acquired, document the skills acquired, like we did on project wherein we moved from Java to Scala. There was a new skill that was acquired in the organization. There was new capability, and get pitch and get project on Scala also from different customers. Okay, update the documents like change log, issue log, requirements doc, right? So project management plan, risk register, go and update all these documents. Finally, if there are multiple phases, close the project phases. Whichever needs to be closed, you have to close all the project phases. Then prepare a final report. What is all the observations, like what is the best thing? Share with the stakeholders, so the stakeholders get to know what was delivered. Are they happy? How many milestones reached? What was the revenue recognition? Right? What was the profit? What was the margins? Right? What is the value given to the customer? Like, what is the future prospects from this customer? Make a note of all those things in the final report. Then, what is your customer satisfaction? Capture the CSAT score for the customer. Then hand out deliverables. So what have you built in? Hand out to the customer, right? Get a free, get a user training done to the customer so that they know what was delivered to them. So they're happy with the user training. They can use the product, right? So a good handoff has to be. It's not just giving a document to them. So okay, fine, go and use it. You have to go and educate people on how the software needs to be used. And then after that, if there are any contracts, close all the contracts, right? You formally close all the open contracts. And then finally, the most important one, celebrate. You have done a great job. You've achieved a good milestone. So take a team outside, celebrate. If you're part of a team, celebrate, right? Have a team dinner or go for a team outing. So the celebration is important because it's going to increase the collaboration among team members. People will get to know more about each other. It will be helpful for future projects, and also it gives a sense of satisfaction. People kind of say, okay, fine, we have been recognized for our work, so we're celebrating, we're getting some extra perks, or maybe a team lunch, or maybe a team outing. So all these things, right? So most important things to celebrate on the project. So that's about closing a project. Okay, watch this series of 5 videos: initiating, planning, monitoring, executing, monitoring, closing. I've captured everything about these process groups. You have a good idea about what's about the project management, for your interviews, for PMP examination, or for day-to-day work in project management. I wish you all the best for your future endeavors in project management. Please do like, share, and subscribe for more videos. This is Faraaz. Bye bye.